At this place in history with the Vermont Historical Society, Steve Perkins joins me once again, and this place in history is a kind of presidential.
Definitely a dual presidential history, as you can say. We're on the south end of Isle La Motte, here in beautiful Lake Champlain, on what was the estate of Lieutenant Governor Nelson Fisk. Now, he was involved in the Fish and Game League, and when we think Fish and Game League, we think of game suppers and whatnot. But if you think back to like the 1890s and 1900, this is where all the gentlemen of the day would come together. You think of these grand camps in the Adirondacks and these hunting trips and fishing on Lake Champlain. That all happened, around this area, and he hosted a number of dinners on this estate throughout that time. And so we had hosted a couple of presidents. The sign that we are talking about today refers to Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who was vice president in 1901 and was the featured speaker at the game dinner. He was the featured speaker on Friday, September 6, 1901. And for people who are real wonks about history, they may know that President McKinley was shot in Buffalo on that date. And so Theodore Roosevelt was here, and he received news of the president being shot right here on this estate.
And we have someone to continue that story.
Absolutely. We have Linda Fitch, who is the current owner of this property, who's going to tell us a lot more.
What happened after Teddy Roosevelt found out?
He had come here that day on the Webb schooner, the Alfreda, and so they whisked him back on the boat. It got back to Burlington in just an hour. The railroad company had a train all ready for him, and they took him back out to Buffalo. The doctors at that time told Roosevelt after a day or so that he seemed to be improving. And they said, yes, Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Vice President, you can go on to the Adirondacks where you had planned your family vacation. Roosevelt did that, and on September 13th, I believe it was, he was climbing Mount Marcy in the Adirondacks, and a messenger brought a telegram indicating that the President McKinley had taken a turn for the worse, and Roosevelt needed to get back as quickly as possible to Buffalo. McKinley died, I believe, 2 a.m. on September 14th, while Roosevelt was making the trip back to Buffalo. And so he was sworn in on September 14th as the youngest president in United States history.
So what do we see right now? We see part of the building that was here at the time?
Yes. It was a very grand house originally. It was built in 1803 from stone from the adjacent quarry. The Fisk family lived here for 4 generations.
What is the place now?
Well, it's a private home, and but we're very much involved in preserving the rocks on Isle La Motte, which are part of the ancient fossil reef, 480 million years old. And so we do fundraisers in the form of concerts and art shows, and we serve tea on Sunday afternoon to the public, and all of that goes to support the Isle La Motte Preservation Trust. So it's private property, but we have a very strong mission.
Teddy Roosevelt was the vice president at the time, but the president actually came here.
He did. Everything gets overshadowed by this whole Teddy Roosevelt story, but in 1897, William McKinley, who was currently president, also visited this exact site for a game dinner as well. So, and what's kind of cool about this site is that it really was most accessible by water, and the remains of this huge stone jetty is still here, and so steamships would come up from Burlington with 600 people on board and drop off here, and they would feed them all on the lawn of this beautiful estate.
Another beautiful place in history.